Welcome back. Hope you all had a great break, some nice lunch, stretch your legs, and I hope you're all ready for an afternoon of some incredible speakers and some really insightful, very interesting topics, actually. We're really going to cross the sort of broad spectrum of AI and AI-related things. So I hope you're excited for that. I do want to remind you that we have our tech tracks as well. We have 3 of them. Coming up right now, in track 1, it will focus on, that will be our deep dive tech talks, which is created by our content partners at Mila. Track 2 will be our innovation insights. And I mentioned just before the break for track 3, there's a workshop by SAS, which is called What Do Sea Turtles, Wildfires, and Nursing Homes Have in Common? Ethical AI. So if those are of interest, go and check out our tracks. Otherwise, stay with us, because we have some brilliant speakers here as well, as I mentioned. So let's kick off. Here on the main stage, we're going to have a presentation about responsible generative AI and societal impact. And our speaker is going to be Merve Hickok, who is the President and Research Director at the Center for AI and Digital Policy. Merve is a globally renowned expert on AI policy, ethics, and governance. Her research, training, and consulting work focuses on the impact of AI systems on individuals, society, public, and private organizations, with a particular focus on fundamental rights, democratic values, and social justice. So please give a great big warm welcome to Merve Hickok.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am very excited to be here today with so many of you, not only thinking about the use cases, development, deployment of AI, but also the impact on society, impact on business. My name is Merve Hickok. As Fiona introduced me, I'm the founder of AIethicist.org. I've been training and consulting both public and private organizations on responsible AI development, as well as governments. I've been also teaching about the same subjects in University of Michigan. I'm also the president of Center for AI and Digital Policy. We are an independent nonprofit organization working on AI policy globally at the intersection of AI policy, human rights, and democratic values. One can say I am living, breathing, dreaming of AI. Whether that is a good thing or whether that is a healthy thing, we can discuss that separately. But I'm really excited to be here today. Generative AI has attracted, I think it's not moving from your end. All right. When we talk about generative AI, we're looking at, Generative AI has attracted the attention of millions since it has been deployed to mainstream users, with the products that are easy to prompt, ask questions, and use, as well as ability to use this with natural language, really excited people, really excited the users. And sky is the limit when we're talking about prompting the systems and getting them to generate things, as long as you don't need any factual accuracy. The developers, the governments, as well as the businesses have been incredibly active, if you haven't noticed, in the last year and a half, competing for media attention, declarations, investments, etc. Generative AI is seen as a tool, and I'm going to read this, to benefit humanity, humanity's potential, human species, and help society flourish. Whether it will or it will not, we will see. I think generative AI is going to be what we make of it. However, one thing is clear, that generative AI does have a societal impact. And we all have a voice in what we want this technology to do, in how we want accountability and how we want responsibility to be allocated. We want this technology, I want this technology to be adopted where it benefits society, where it benefits the users. But we also want this technology to help narrow the existing gaps, the digital gaps, the geographical, gender, racial, and other issues that we have, other inequities that we have. And not just benefit a small portion of this already powerful entities. So I'm going to be a bit provocative for the next 10 minutes or so, and I want to start by asking the first question. Since we're talking about humanity and human potential here, asking, what is this humanity that we're talking about that is supposed to be reflected in these products and that is supposed to be benefiting from these products? And what is the responsibility of developers and deployers like us, like all of you who are here today, that we make sure that actually the promises are actually realized? Like I said, I will provide some examples and some provocations and leave some time at the end to answer some questions as well. When we talk about humanity and human knowledge, we do need to do a bit of a sanity check about whose values and perspectives are reflected in these systems, who are impacted by outcomes, and who actually gets to decide on these. Even today, 1/3 of the world's population does not have access to internet, let alone generative AI. It is actually higher than 1/3, but I thought 1 out of 3 was an easier number to remember. When we hear claims of generative AI has the collective knowledge of humanity, we need to remember that not everything that makes us human, society, humanity, and where we are today is actually digitized, or even that it should be digitized. Things like our oral histories, traditions, experiences, emotions, they're not in the digital realm, but with all their nuances, with all the quality of our interactions, these are the significant portion of our lives, significant portion of our society and humanity that actually represents our collective information, collective knowledge. We also need to remember that English, the language that most of these systems are built upon, in most cases, is significantly overrepresented in digital data sets that generative AI systems are developed on, versus more than 7,000 languages otherwise. We also know that generative AI systems are built on indiscriminate and mass-scale scraping of the internet. Regardless if you or I have chosen or consented for our personal or proprietary data to be used or not. Talk about who gets to make the decisions. These limitations combined with the nature of generative AI systems as next word or next token predictors are important because there are significant outcomes and implications associated with their deployment. Instead of having to respond to the flood of product deployments, or individual users having to surface the harms, the risks, etc. after deployment, we need to be able to collectively decide what we want these systems to do and imagine how these systems should benefit us, how they should support us. In March 2023, I had the honor of testifying at the US Congress regarding AI and generative AI technologies. At that point, ChatGPT was deployed for a few months. So we were already seeing some of the old AI issues resurface. And we were also seeing new issues emerge that are specific to generative AI. This was 1 week before GPT-4 was deployed. I warned the lawmakers in that testimony that there are both business, individual, like fundamental rights, business, as well as societal consequences with these systems, and made some policy recommendations. I underlined the need to earn justified trust for these systems and the responsible development and deployment. Over the last few years at CAIDP, we have been providing similar recommendations to national governments, European Union, OECD, UNESCO, United Nations, Council of Europe, etc. So we're still working on this, again, as I said, at the intersection of fundamental rights and democratic values. During the testimony, I was asked if we, being the US Congress, if US is ready. And my response was direct. No, we do not have the guardrails in place, the laws that we need, the public education, or the expertise in the government to manage the consequences of this rapid change that is now taking place. I don't think it is different for other governments. What I said for US government or US society is very much reflective of other jurisdictions or other countries as well. I was hoping that my testimony to be a warning towards the possible impact and what was about to come, and most of those indeed came into reality in very short order. So some vendors may prefer designs that make generative AI sound human-like, mimic human knowledge, or as if the model had feelings or emotions. Such decisions may be driven by the desire to increase user engagement, to get more data from the users, or to reduce the friction when using the systems. However, these design decisions can have unintentional impact on users. What I mentioned by increased engagement, increased data collection, less friction, might sound familiar to some of you for the last decade of social media interactions that we had. Not all users here in the room, we are more or less familiar with these technologies, but unfortunately, not all the users understand the limitations of the system and understand that the language models especially are statistical representation systems. They are looking at the statistical representation and relationships between words and not necessarily understand the context or the consequences of the responses. So users may actually take real-life actions depending on the responses. We have seen some very unfortunate examples around that. So since the very early days of the deployment, we have seen incidents impacting the users very seriously. One person committed suicide in Europe after extended periods of engagement with these chat systems, not understanding the technology behind the system. We have seen language models deployed without safeguards, giving harmful advice to people with existing disorders. We have seen non-English speaking students being flagged about conducting plagiarism when some of the schools, in a rush, in a panic, deployed AI plagiarism detection tools. We're also seeing organizations, or users rather, prompting the systems in ways that are unforeseen, unexpected. We are not going to see, or we don't expect all these use cases to be determined, to be tested by the deployers. However, this should not be an excuse for any deployer or any developer to run the systems without proper guardrails. Most of these issues are not surprises, neither to developers nor us. We have been deliberating them for the better part of the last decade. Things like human rights, bias, stereotypes, misinformation, privacy, safety, security, impact on people with disabilities, children, elderly, etc. These issues are now amplified by generative AI systems. We also warn about disinformation, about the issues, the growing number of non-consensual pornography, deception and fraud using generative AI or deepfakes, as well as blackmailing and other issues. Why am I saying this? Because we do have a responsibility, not only the deployers, not only the developers, but all of us as in this ecosystem. We need to decrease the generative AI hype a bit and really talk about its potential as well as limitations in a way that people understand. We need to be real about how we can use the systems and collectively decide how we want to use the systems. There is also new research that actually shows that scaling up data sets without robust controls can actually magnify the bias and discrimination than there is in the real world. So just to be clear, these systems are not simple reflections of the bias in our societies. But scaling up the data sets, like I said, without quality controls, actually results in more harmful and more toxic outcomes than the real world. We have seen systems that, even when prompted to correct the responses, that they still produce the same bias over and over again. But this is not only about individual impact, individual users. We're also talking about responsible generative AI as it impacts the enterprises. Companies, there are so many of you who are developing or deploying these systems or building wraparound systems on generative AI. We are looking to adopt these technologies to increase the efficiency, increase the user engagement, and maybe hopefully both, right? You as company, you as an enterprise, thinking about deploying the systems, subscribing to the systems, being a downstream user to the general purpose AI systems, need to be able to make informed decisions about the risks that you're undertaking, understand the commitment that you are making, and then have that informed decision. But the bottom line across all this is really about trust. If we don't responsibly act as public and private organizations, and if we simply deploy generative AI systems without safeguards, focusing on commercial priorities and incentives, these actions will have long-term impact. Users are bombarded, individuals are bombarded by the hype and the possibilities of generative AI. However, they might get really frustrated without understanding the limitations and the technology behind it. They might get frustrated with the inaccuracies, aka hallucinations. The less than ideal safety measures may lead to incidents impacting one's rights or safety. The cybersecurity issues may result in major injection or evasion attacks. Malicious use of deepfakes can create financial, physical, reputational, and emotional damages. A lot rests on the shoulders of decision makers who are developing and deploying the systems. Hype can attract users and drive commercial gains for a short run. However, all these issues combined can significantly erode public trust and confidence. And we want that trust and confidence in the systems, but we want it to be justified. When I say trust needs to be justified, it needs to be earned. It is earned when systems add value and perform as expected and as intended. Trust drives adoption. More adoption drives more investment. And more investment in business, academia, education, government drives more access and possibilities for these systems. At a societal level, the combination of deepfakes and erosion trust is a really, really dangerous combination. Imagine a scenario, imagine a time when people do not trust what they see, what they hear, what they read. Ask yourself if you have already started questioning the authenticity of what you're saying on a daily basis. And please ask, what does that mean for the fabric of society in the long run? Finally, I want to leave you with these questions. For responsible generative AI, let's ask some fundamental questions, just like we started the presentation. Who benefits from these systems? Who ends up being harmed or burdened? What languages are prioritized? What values are embedded? And ultimately, who gets to decide across all of these? Thank you.